What kind of person calls the police on kids for hanging posters on lampposts? Karen Mitchell did, and she did it with a smirk that could curdle milk. The morning sun barely broke through the gray clouds hanging over Willow Creek, a sleepy town where everyone knew everyone's business. Karen, all 300 pounds of her, stormed out of her pristine colonial home, her floral dress flapping like a warning flag. She'd spotted them from her kitchen window, two teenagers, lanky and awkward, taping colorful posters to the lampposts lining Maple Street. To her, it was vandalism, a blight on her perfect neighborhood. To them, it was a lifeline. Karen didn't hesitate. She dialed 911, her voice dripping with indignation as she reported, "Delinquents defacing public property." By the time officers Daniels and Ruiz arrived, a small crowd had gathered. The teens, Mia and Lucas, stood frozen, their hands stuffed with tape and flyers. Mia, barely 16, clutched a sketchbook, her dark eyes wide with fear. Lucas, a gangly boy with a mop of curls, tried to explain, but Karen's voice drowned him out. "This is a respectable community," she bellowed, jabbing a manicured finger at the posters. "You don't get to trash it with your scribbles." The posters weren't scribbles. They were hand-drawn, vibrant with messages like, "You are enough," and "Keep going." Each one bore a hotline number in bold black marker. Mia's hands trembled as she tried to speak. "Therefore for kids who need help," she stammered. "It's a suicide prevention campaign." Karen's laugh was sharp, like glass breaking. "Suicide prevention? That's what you call this mess? Take it down, or I'll make sure you're both in juvie by sundown." Officer Daniels, a soft-spoken man with tired eyes, stepped forward. "Ma'am, let's calm down. These kids have permits." He held up a clipboard from Sarah, the community worker who'd been mentoring Mia and Lucas. Sarah, in her early 30s, had a quiet strength, her ponytail swaying as she nodded. "The town approved this, Karen. It's a youth initiative." Karen's face twisted, her cheeks flushing red. "Permits? I don't care about permits. This is my street, and I won't have it looking like a circus." Mia's voice cracked as she spoke up, her sketchbook pressed to her chest like a shield. "My brother, he died last year. These posters are for kids like him." The crowd went silent. Lucas shuffled closer to her, his jaw tight. Karen faltered for a split second, but her ego was a runaway train. "That's no excuse for breaking the law," she snapped, though her voice wavered. Officer Ruiz, younger and sharper, raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, they're not breaking any laws. You might want to check your facts before calling us out here." Karen's eyes narrowed. She wasn't used to being challenged, especially not in front of her neighbors. Willow Creek was her kingdom, and she ruled it with complaints about noisy dogs, untidy lawns, or kids skateboarding too close to her driveway. But this was different. These kids weren't just defying her. They were exposing her. The crowd murmured, some nodding at Mia's words, others glaring at Karen. A woman in a cardigan whispered to her friend, "She's always like this. Last month, she reported my son's lemonade stand." Sarah stepped in, her voice steady but firm. "Karen, these posters are saving lives. The data's clear. Teen suicide rates are up, and campaigns like this reduce calls to crisis lines by 15%. These kids are doing good." Karen scoffed, folding her arms. "Good? They're kids. They don't know what's good for this town." But the crowd wasn't with her. A man in a flannel shirt called out, "Let the kids be, Karen. It's just paper." The air grew thick with tension. Mia's eyes glistened, but she stood taller, her sketchbook still clutched tight. Lucas, emboldened, taped another poster to the lamppost, his hands shaking but deliberate. Karen's face turned crimson. "You'll regret this," she hissed, storming back to her house. The officers exchanged a look, knowing this wasn't over. Sarah put a hand on Mia's shoulder, whispering, "You're doing great. Don't let her stop you." Inside her house, Karen was already on the phone, not with the police this time, but with her cousin, a low-level clerk at the town hall. "I want those permits revoked," she demanded, pacing her spotless kitchen. "Those kids think they can make a fool of me?" I'll have those posters torn down by tomorrow. Her cousin hesitated, but Karen's tone left no room for argument. Do it, or I'll tell everyone about that little incident with the mayor's car. By noon, the town hall was abuzz. Karen's complaint had reached the mayor's office, and the permits were under review. Mia and Lucas, unaware, continued their work, taping posters along the park's edge. Sarah got the call first, a nervous intern explaining that the permits might be reconsidered due to community concerns. Her heart sank. She knew exactly who was behind it. As the sun dipped lower, Mia sat on a park bench, sketching a new poster. Her pencil moved furiously, channeling her anger and grief into bold lines and words of hope. Lucas sat beside her, scrolling through his phone. Look at this, he said, showing her a post on X. A local had snapped a photo of Karen yelling at them that morning. Captioned, Karen Mitchell versus kids trying to save lives. Guess who's winning? The post had dozens of retweets, with comments calling Karen everything from petty to heartless. Mia's lips twitched into a small smile, but it faded fast. She's not going to stop, is she? She asked. Lucas shook his head. Nope, but neither are we. Sarah joined them, her face grim. We've got a problem, she said, explaining the permit situation. Mia's eyes widened. She can't do that, can she? Sarah didn't sugarcoat it. She's trying, but we're not done fighting. The twist came that evening, when Sarah dug into the town's records. Karen's house, that pristine colonial she bragged about, was built on land zoned for public use. Years ago, her late husband had pulled strings to get it rezoned, but the paperwork was shaky, possibly fraudulent. Sarah's hands shook as she read the documents. This wasn't just leverage. It was a bombshell. If Karen wanted to play dirty, they could play dirtier. But Mia hesitated. If we use this, it's like sinking to her level, she said, her voice soft but firm. Lucas disagreed. She's trying to shut us down. We have to fight back. Sarah nodded, torn but resolute. We'll confront her tomorrow. All of us. At the town meeting. The stage was set, and Willow Creek was about to see a showdown no one would forget. The town hall was packed, the air heavy with anticipation. Folding chairs creaked as neighbors squeezed in, their whispers buzzing like static. Karen stood at the front, her floral dress replaced by a severe blazer, her face a mask of righteous indignation. She'd prepared a speech, typed and printed, accusing Mia and Lucas of disrupting community standards. The posters, she claimed, were an eyesore and a safety hazard. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others rolling their eyes. Karen's reputation preceded her. She was the woman who'd once demanded a neighbor's tree be cut down because its leaves fell on her lawn. Mia sat in the back, her sketchbook on her lap, her heart pounding. Lucas fidgeted beside her, his phone buzzing with notifications from X. The post about Karen had gone viral locally, with hundreds of likes and comments tearing into her. She's trending for all the wrong reasons, he muttered, showing Mia a meme of Karen's face photoshopped onto a cartoon villain. Mia didn't laugh. Her brother's death still weighed on her, a raw wound that fueled every poster she drew. She wasn't here for revenge. She was here for him. Sarah stood near the podium, clutching the zoning documents. She'd spent the night confirming their validity with a lawyer friend. Karen's house was a ticking time bomb, but using it felt like crossing a line. Still, she'd brought the papers just in case. The mayor, a balding man with a nervous tic, called the meeting to order. We're here to discuss the Youth Initiative posters, he said, glancing at Karen. Mrs. Mitchell has raised concerns. Karen launched into her speech, her voice rising with each word. These children have no respect for our town's aesthetic. Those posters are a disgrace, and their so-called campaign is just an excuse for vandalism. She pointed at Mia and Lucas, her eyes gleaming with triumph. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few older residents clapped, but most stayed silent. Sarah stepped forward, her voice cutting through Karen's tirade. These posters are part of an approved youth initiative to address teen mental health. The permits are valid, and the campaign has already connected 3 kids to crisis hotlines this week. The crowd gasped softly. Karen's face twisted, but she doubled down. Permits can be revoked. I've spoken to the town clerk, and those posters are coming down. That's when Mia stood, her sketchbook falling to the floor with a thud. Her voice shook, but it carried. My brother killed himself last year. He was 14. He didn't know there were people who could help. These posters are for kids like him, so they know they're not alone. The room went still. Karen opened her mouth, but no words came. Mia's eyes locked on hers, unflinching. You're trying to stop us because you don't like how it looks? What's uglier, some posters or kids dying? The crowd erupted in applause, some standing, others wiping tears. Karen's face burned red, her hands clenching the podium. Lucas, emboldened, stood too. You called the cops on us, Karen. You threatened juvie. Over posters that save lives. Who's the real problem here? The room buzzed louder, the tide turning fast. Then came the twist. A woman in the crowd, Mrs. Delaney, stood up. She was Karen's neighbor, a quiet widow who'd lived on Maple Street for decades. Karen, you're one to talk about community standards, she said, her voice trembling but clear. You've been dumping your yard waste in my backyard for years, claiming it's natural compost. I have photos. She held up her phone, showing images of bags piled behind her fence. The crowd gasped, then laughed. Karen's jaw dropped, her composure cracking. Sarah seized the moment. Karen, if you want to talk about violations, let's discuss your house. She held up the zoning documents, her voice steady. This says your property was illegally rezoned in 2003. If we push this, you could lose your home. The room exploded in whispers. Karen's eyes widened, her hands trembling. That's slander, she sputtered. But Sarah didn't back down. It's public record, and we both know it's true. The mayor, sweating now, tried to regain control. Let's keep this civil, please. But the crowd was done with civility. A man shouted, Karen, leave the kids alone. Others joined in, their voices a chorus of frustration. Karen's kingdom was crumbling, and she knew it. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, the door slamming behind her. Outside, Karen sat in her car, her hands gripping the wheel. For the first time, she felt small. The ex-posts were relentless now, with hashtags like Karen vs. Kids trending locally. She opened her phone, scrolling through the comments. Bully. Heartless. Shame on her. Each one stung, but one hit hard. A post from her own niece, barely 18, who wrote, Aunt Karen, I needed those posters last year. You don't get it. Back in the town hall, Mia picked up her sketchbook, her hands still shaking. Lucas hugged her, whispering, We did it. Sarah smiled, but her eyes were cautious. She's not done, she warned. People like Karen don't quit. Mia nodded, her resolve hardening. Neither do we. That night, the posters stayed up, glowing under the lampposts. But Karen was already plotting her next move, and it was darker than anyone expected. Karen didn't sleep. Her pristine kitchen, usually a sanctuary, felt like a cage. The ex-posts haunted her, each notification a jab at her pride. By dawn, she'd made a decision. If Willow Creek wanted a war, she'd give them one. She called a lawyer, a slick man named Greg who specialized in loopholes. Find a way to shut this down, she demanded, her voice low and venomous. Those kids don't get to humiliate me. Greg promised to dig into the permits and the zoning issue, but he warned her, this could get messy. Public opinion's not on your side. Karen didn't care. She wasn't fighting for opinion. She was fighting for control. By noon, the town was on edge. Greg had filed an injunction, claiming the posters violated obscure municipal codes about visual clutter. The mayor, desperate to avoid more drama, scheduled an emergency hearing for the next day. Sarah got the news while helping Mia and Lucas hang new posters. She's suing the town? Lucas asked, incredulous. Sarah nodded, her jaw tight. She's desperate, but this is our chance to end it. Mia was quieter, her sketchbook open to a half-finished drawing of her brother's smile. What if we lose? She whispered. Sarah knelt beside her. We won't. The truth's on our side. But Mia wasn't so sure. Karen's influence ran deep. Her family had connections in the town hall, and money talked louder than posters. The hearing was chaos. The town hall overflowed, with reporters from local news stations crowding the back. Karen sat up front, her lawyer beside her, oozing confidence. Mia, Lucas, and Sarah sat opposite, flanked by community supporters. The mayor, looking like he'd aged a decade, called for order. Greg presented Karen's case, droning about codes and aesthetics, but the crowd wasn't listening. Their eyes were on Mia, who clutched a stack of letters from kids who'd seen the posters and called the hotline. When it was Sarah's turn, she stood tall. These posters aren't clutter. They're lifelines. Last week, a 14-year-old girl saw one and called for help. She's alive because of it. She held up the zoning documents, her voice rising. Mrs. Mitchell's complaint isn't about codes. It's about control. And her own house violates zoning laws from 2003. If anyone's breaking rules, it's her. The crowd roared, some chanting, "Take it down." Karen's face went pale. Greg tried to object, but the mayor cut him off. Mrs. Mitchell, do you have a response? Karen stood, her voice trembling with rage. This is a witch hunt. Those kids are manipulating you all with their sob story. But her words fell flat. The crowd's boos drowned her out, and even Greg looked uneasy. Then Mia spoke, her voice soft but piercing. My brother didn't have a hotline. He didn't have a poster telling him he was enough. I can't bring him back, but I can help other kids. Why would you stop that? Her words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. A woman in the crowd sobbed. Even the mayor's eyes glistened. Karen's empire collapsed in that moment. The mayor ruled in favor of the campaign, citing overwhelming community support. The zoning issue was referred to the state for investigation, and Karen's house was now under scrutiny. Greg whispered something to her, but she shoved him away, storming out as cameras flashed. Outside, the posters glowed brighter under the lampposts, each one a testament to Mia's courage. X lit up with support, with thousands sharing the campaign's hotline number. A local artist offered to fund more posters, and schools across the county asked to join the initiative. Mia and Lucas became local heroes, their story spreading far beyond Willow Creek. Karen, meanwhile, faced consequences. The state's investigation confirmed the zoning fraud, and her house was tied up in legal battles. Neighbors shunned her, and her niece's post, once a private jab, went viral, shared by mental health advocates nationwide. Karen retreated, her kingdom reduced to a silent, empty house. Months later, Mia stood at her brother's grave, a new poster in her hands. It read, "You are enough," with his name in small print at the bottom. She taped it to a nearby tree, her fingers steady. Lucas and Sarah stood behind her, their faces proud. He'd love this, Lucas said. Mia nodded, a tear falling. Yeah, he would. The campaign grew, saving lives one poster at a time. And in Willow Creek, the lampposts stood as quiet sentinels, reminding everyone that even the smallest acts of courage could outshine the loudest complaints.